Hey human beings, today we're going over America's sweetheart, Steve Jobs, an icon of the personal computer era, specifically going over events before his birth. Steve's real parents were Paul Jobs and Clara Jobs. Clara, the mother, was born in New Jersey, where her family had arrived after fleeing the Turks. She was described as a very kind person. Paul, on the other hand, had a more detailed backstory. He came from a dairy farm, and his father was an alcoholic and sometimes abusive. He was 6 feet tall, tattooed, and a member of the Coast Guard during World War II, and deployed on the USS Shenanigans. He was also described as looking like James Dean. I don't know who he is, but seeing as he had all that going for him, it's fair to say he was pretty much a gigachad. When he got taken out the Coast Guard after the war, he arrived in San Francisco, where a ship was decommissioned. There he made a bet with his buddies that he could find a wife in 2 weeks, which is pretty much a safe bet considering he is a gigachad. He later went on to meet Clara, and in March 1946, they got engaged and at the same time won the wager. Most of you guys take years to find the right one. My boy Paul did it in less than 2 weeks. Paul would then go on to work as a repo man. He would also buy, fix, and resell cars as a side hustle. Everything was going pretty well for this couple, but they felt like there was something missing in their lives, and they decided they wanted a baby. Unfortunately, Claire had suffered from an ectopic pregnancy, rendering her unable to have children. So by 1955, after 9 years of marriage, they decided to adopt. At this point in the video, you might notice I called Paul and Clara his real parents, even though he was adopted. Anytime someone called Paul or Clara his adoptive parents, rather than his real parents, he would get annoyed or angry. They were my parents, 1000%. But when speaking about his biological parents, he would say, they were my sperm and egg bank. That's not harsh, it's just the way it was. A sperm bag thing, nothing more. So out of respect for his real parents and Steve, I'll say real parents. This reminds me of the scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when Yondu saves Star-Lord and tells him, he may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. Steve's biological parents were Joanne Schleich, and I'm not going to butcher that name, so we're just going to use the John in the middle. John was the youngest of 9 and came from a prominent Syrian family. His father was a big baller, owning oil refineries and other businesses. His family was big on education, and he was sent to get an undergraduate degree at the American University in Beirut before going to the University of Wisconsin to get a doctoral degree in political science. Joanne, on the flip side, came from a rural Wisconsin family. She had a strict father who owned a mink farm and successfully experimented in other businesses like real estate and photo engraving, so he was pretty much a big baller as well. Being a strict man, he greatly disapproved of Joanne's first love, an artist who wasn't Catholic. So when she found out she fell for John, a Muslim teaching assistant from Syria, he straight up threatened to cut her off. Being the rebel she is, during the summer of 1954, Joanne went off with John to Syria. And when she returned to Wisconsin, she discovered something terrible. She had a bun in the oven. They were both 23 and decided not to get married. Her father was dying and threatened to disown her if she did marry him. So in early 1955, she traveled to San Francisco, where a kind doctor helped unwed mothers deliver babies and quietly arrange closed adoptions. Joanne had one requirement, that her child be adopted by college graduates. The doctor therefore arranged for the baby to be adopted by a lawyer and his wife. But on February 24, 1955, the baby was born a boy, and the couple decided to back out because they now wanted a girl. So instead, he was adopted by a high school dropout and his salt-of-the-earth wife who worked as a bookkeeper.
Henceforth, your name is Stephen Paul Jobs.
When Joanne found out that they hadn't even graduated high school, she refused to sign the adoption papers. After weeks, she gave in, but she would only sign if they signed a pledge to fund a savings account to pay for her child's college education. There was another sneaky reason why Joanne didn't want to sign the papers. Her father was close to dying. She hoped that once he kicked the bucket, she would be able to marry John and she would be able to get her baby back. Her father died after adoption was finalized. Just after Christmas of that same year, she would indeed marry John and would later have a child named Mona. They got divorced in 1962, but you win and you lose some.